My name is Kevin Jacob, and today I'll be going over the G1000 flight and execution assignment um, for GPS navigation. Um, so my flight simulation was from KJYO to Richmond International, um, down in Richmond, Virginia. Here is the flight plan. This is what it looks like. So KJYO is 9 nautical miles northwest of Washington Dulles International Airport. It primarily serves training, uh, aircraft training traffic as well as business jet traffic. So there are 5 flight schools at Leesburg Executive Airport, and two of them mainly focus on Cirrus aircrafts, and the other three mainly focus on Cessnas, Piper Warriors, and whatnot. Um, the field had 2 FBOs before last year. However, one FBO got bought out by the other, um, due to the fact that with how the market was when it came to fuel. One company wasn't selling enough fuel to sustain or compete with the other FBO. And so as a result, the other FBO bought out the FBO that I was working at and basically just took over. And so the FBO that is there right now has been running since 2021, and but it's been about a year that they've been running for as the primary FBO at Leesburg Executive Airport. Um, like I said, it mainly services training aircraft traffic, but also um, it serves the business aviation traffic as well. So, for example, on presidential or on election day, I believe there was at least 30, 35 aircraft, business jet aircraft on the tarmac at Leesburg Executive Airport, and that's pretty rare. So basically, it kind of acts as a gateway into the Washington D.C. area, and I think it provides a great alternate to corporate flight departments that don't want to fly into Washington Dulles or DCA. And I know that like flying into Washington Dulles as well as DCA can be a hassle and can be very costly. So it's kind of similar to Manassas, um, just on a smaller scale. So let's quickly talk about the Leesburg Executive Airport. Yeah, so let's look into the AWAS. The frequency is going to be 125.225. Um, Clearance delivery is 118.55. Leesburg ground is going to be 120.50. Tower is going to be 127.5. CTAF right 127.5. Tower closes at 2300 Zulu. So roughly around big minus 4. Okay, so that's cool. Potomac approach 125.05, same thing with departure. The traffic pattern is 1200 MSL. Um, and the airport is owned by the town of Leesburg. Um, it has one runway. Um, and the length of that runway is 5,500 feet. Runway 35 and 17. One facing the northwest and the other one facing Washington Dulles Airport. Um, yeah, cool. And the airport has 4 departure procedures: Clutch 3, J Dub 4, Potomac 2, Scram 6, and then arrival. It's mainly 5 arrivals, and then there's 2 approaches: the ILS or localizer for runway 17, or the RNAV GPS for runway 17. So here are the waypoints. Potomac, Wings, KCJR, Culpeper, 7 Whiskey 4, OFP is Hanover County, and then Richmond International. Here we can see that I put the waypoints into this flight plan. right here. Um, and basically here's the heading bug. Um, so right now we're like the way this is set up, we're taking off runway 35, which is out to the northwest. Um, and so we're gonna be starting at 0 knots. Um, altitude is at 0, but we're gonna take off, make a left turn out, and we're gonna climb up to 1400 because there is a Bravo shelf at 1500. Um, and then 120.50 is ground, 127.50 is tower or CTAF. And once we're in the air, we're going to switch it over to 125.05 for departure. Let's quickly look into Richmond. So K Rich. Um, Richmond International, right? It's 8 miles, 8 nautical miles from downtown. Um, let's see what else is there. Um, yeah, so ASOS is, or the ATIS is 119.15, ground is 121.9, tower 121.1. Obviously different frequencies for where you're coming from, for approach and departure. And the traffic pattern for a light aircraft is going to be 1168, so around 1200. And the owner of the airport includes Capital Region Airport Commissions, right? Cool runway. There's two runways. One is 6,607 feet, and then the other one's 9,000, pretty much 9,000 feet. Um, there are four departure procedures, um, three arrivals, and then a whole lot of ILSs for um, runway 2, 16, 34, 20, and then same thing with the RNAV. So yeah, and then I could quickly show you the info right here. Right. So like I said, we're gonna be taking off runway 35, 35 heading. Um, altitude is gonna be 1400 kjyo. So basically, what's gonna be happening is we're gonna take off at 900 feet. And we're gonna make a left turn out to the west. So at a heading of like 310 or 320. And we're gonna go to Potomac first. So then right here we're taking off, kind of off to the right a bit. We're gonna climb up to 1400, but at 900 we're making a left turn out to Potomac, and then we're gonna switch over to 125.05 to talk to departure frequency. So here, like I said, we're making that turnover, and then we're about to level off at 1400, just so we can be under the Bravo. And so here we have is like the flight plan, like I said, and we're gonna climb and level off at 5,500. So here we're from here to here we're gonna be at 1,400. But once we get under this Bravo shelf and we're heading towards wings, we're gonna climb up to 2,300, stay below 23. And then once we pass this blue, we're gonna climb up to 43. And then once we're out of the Bravo, we're gonna climb up to 5,500. Sometimes they allow us to the ATC air traffic control allow us to be in the Bravo at a certain altitude, but it just depends on like the traffic, right? And if they do clear us, they're gonna be like, hey, tail number XYZ, you are cleared into the Bravo at 5,500. And then we're just gonna continue our flight to Richmond, and pretty much we're gonna go over Wings, Culpeper, some Whiskey 4, Hanover, County, and then Richmond. And throughout the time, ATC is gonna give us different altimeter settings, and they're gonna make sure that we look out for certain traffic. Um, and then once we get closer, we're gonna be looking at our ATIS, and then they're gonna tell us which runway to head to and give us headings. So let's now look into the pros of the G1000, right? So the pros include enhanced situational awareness, reduced pilot workload, redundancy, and revisionary mode, right? So essentially with the MFD, you're allowed to pretty much see all traffic, and it kind of makes you aware, right? You're not working as hard as when you're flying steam gauge, right? Because when you're flying steam gauge, you gotta look at the six spec, like for the most part, right? But for the G1000, you can look outside, focus on flying, um, pretty much just look through and make sure look around, make sure there's no traffic coming at you or you're not going into traffic. So yeah, same thing with reduced pilot workload. So it makes the job of flying easier when compared to six pack, right? And that's gonna help, and that's gonna just make flying safer and efficient. And then also the last pro of the G1000 is redundancy and provisionary mode. So let's say like something happens, like the AHRS goes kaput or something like that, you do have the revisionary mode. Or like the PFD just stops working, you have the MFD. Or if the MFD stops working, you have the PFD. So at the end of the day, you are going to be fine because you have a lot of backup systems. And when you're trained on the G1000, no matter if you're trained on the G1000 or not, you are trained to handle such emergencies. But having the G1000 on board makes the whole process easier and safer. So let's now look at the cons of the G1000. So there is a learning curve for the G1000. However, there is a learning curve for most aircrafts. The learning curve I could say is it does take a couple of flights, maybe even weeks, depending how often you fly. And it can easily be forgotten just because there's so many different buttons and knobs and the way it is. So I guess that would be the learning curve for the G1000, I guess that would be the issue for the G1000. And for me, when I was doing instrument training, it took me a while to understand the buttonology for the G1000. Another con of the G1000 is the cost, right? So the cost, yeah. So any aircraft with the G1000 installed is pretty much exponentially higher. Um, and the reason why it's obviously glass and it just um, higher to or it's a higher cost to maintain. So, like for example, depending on the area, Cessna 152 or 72 with like six packs only like 150. But like if the G1000 was installed, it then would be like $250 per hour, right? It just depends, right? But there is a higher cost for the G1000. And then let's look into the flight simulation from Leesburg Airport to Richmond. So overall, the G1000 simulator produced by the company Simonic is pretty good. Honestly, it's pretty good. It's not the best. It's not 100% um comparable to like the G1000 and SSL 172 or the Piper. However, it's pretty good for what it is, right? The only issue I had with the flight simulation from JYO or Leesburg to Richmond was like inputting the flight plans. It did have some bugs and it would just kind of like delay. It was like delayed when you would try to put in the flight plan, which can suck, right? Um, Especially if you're trying to practice or train, and it's not as easy to put in the flight plan, and that's kind of expected as this is a simulation. It's not the real thing, but you want to, it would be nice to have the simulation as real as possible. However, I would say that it is like the realest thing, close, like the realest or the closest to the G1000 and the Cessna 172 or Piper Warrior. So if you wanted to look at it, um, and learn and practice and train and chair fly, it's a great tool. It's relatively cheap, and I would recommend it. Um, than like booking out the Redbird or going on an actual flight and then learning it, because at that point you're spending a lot of money. Um, for something you could get on an iPad for like $10, right? So I would recommend it for sure. Definitely is a great tool. Um, and I would say it's like on the same level as like the Garmin training apps, because Garmin has the G3X and the GTX training apps on Apple, and so you can use that app to or use those apps to get a good understanding of like the G3X or the G5, and it's relatively the same thing. Um, but yeah, and that's my flight simulation from JYO to Richmond. My overall review of it. Thank you.